Thank you for showing up at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And it feels like 5 o'clock in the morning. We have changed the clocks. We've done it. Nehemiah is back. Thank you, Nehemiah. Okay, just a little idea for you on a very tired Sunday morning. A little idea for you to chew on. It's definitely in the Sod part of Pardes. So it's Arizal, basically. So a little spice, because especially Parashat Vayakhel, I don't want to say the word boring, but it can get a little hard to find good stuff. So a little Sod, a little spice from the Arizal. We'll start with a couple of questions. Number one, we know that the main guy in charge of the Mishkan was Bezalel. Now, as the rabbi said yesterday, Bezalel was just a boy, 13 years old. Maybe he was 12 when he started. He's a boy. So how can a kid like this just take over? Number two, many, if not most, of the commentaries hold that the Mishkan was a tikkun for the Egel. So there's a dispute what came first, the Mishkan or the Egel, the golden calf. I would say very safely, we can say most commentaries hold that the Egel came first, and the Mishkan was to atone for it. And so therefore, they sacrificed to a cow, and so they had to sacrifice a cow. So the Egel is atoned by the Mishkan. And so the question I have is, if that's true, then Bezalel must be in some way part of the tikkun as well, part of fixing the problem of the Egel. Right? If the whole place is to fix the problem of the Egel, then the guy in charge of the place has to have something to do with the Egel as well. Thirdly, the Gemara says a rule. And it says on the pasuk, Re'eh karati b'shem Bezalel. Hashem says to Moshe, Re'eh karati b'shem Bezalel ben Hur l'matei Yehuda. Look, I have called in the name of Bezalel. Why does it say that? So the Gemara says a rule we learn from here. I don't want to say halacha, but like a rule. The Gemara says we don't make a panes on the sibur unless the sibur desires the panes, which means a leader. We call it a rabbi or even a president, someone in charge. We don't make someone in charge unless the people say we want this person to lead us. And how do we know this? Says the Gemara from this pasuk. Re'u kara Hashem Bezalel. Look, I have called in the name of Bezalel. Rashi says, I like Bezalel, but I'm not going to put him in charge unless you like Bezalel. That's what Rashi says. And Moshe says, how could I ever say no? If you like him, of course I like him. Hashem says, go ask the people if they agree with my choice. It's a silly practice, but Moshe went to the people and they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, if the master says he's good and the student says he's good, he's good. Still, we had to go through this like charades of like everyone had to agree that Bezalel was the guy. And we learned from Bezalel that you should never force a rabbi on someone. It should be the will of the people. Why is Bezalel the guy that we're choosing to teach this principle? And the last question is sort of like the first question. How did Bezalel, such a young kid, how was he in charge of the whole Mishkan? Weren't there more qualified people? For example, Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, he had a hard time. He couldn't even build the menorah without Hashem's help. He didn't know what the shekel looked like without Hashem's help. So why not Moshe Rabbeinu? And if not Moshe Rabbeinu, Aharon HaKohen? Aharon HaKohen couldn't be in charge of the Mishkan. It has to be Bezalel. And so the Arizal, he's going to shed some light that can help to understand.
The next question says,
Chokhmah. I gave him Ruach Chokhmah. So that's another question. I filled him up with Ruach Chokhmah. It's adding to the questions. Moshe, don't worry. This kid is very wise. I have filled him up with wisdom. So thank you. I'm going to add two more questions now to the list because of that. Question number one. What do you get a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid? Wise. Whoever saw such a thing like this? And question number two, the Gemara says on this pasuk, The Gemara says we learn from here that Hashem only pours wisdom into a cup that already has wisdom. It's sort of like catch-22. You have to be wise to have wisdom. But if you don't have wisdom, how do you get wisdom? It's like, how do you get a job? How do you get a job without a resume? But how do you get a resume without a job? So we only give, Hashem says, I only poured wisdom. I filled him up with wisdom because he's a wise person. If you filled him up with wisdom, if he's already wise, he's wise. If he's not wise, where did he get this wisdom from? And why are you pouring wisdom into a kid? So thank you, more different. And so the answer lies, according to the Arizal. Now, the Arizal doesn't line up all these questions like this, but based on what he says, we can understand a lot. The Arizal says, Adam Harishon, it says in the Gemara and the Midrash, he was a kofer, which we don't like really say too much, but it says it. He was a kofer, which means he worshipped idols for a little while. After the sin, Adam Harishon, Adam, he really went down. And he worshipped idols for whatever that means. He didn't worship only Hashem for a short while. Part of the sin of the Etz Hadat is he succumbed to Avodah Zarah, and he needed to atone for this sin. Says the Arizal, later on in the story of Abraham Avinu in the city of Ur-Kasdim, Abraham Avinu was in the city of Ur-Kasdim, the fire of Kasdim. What happened there, it doesn't say in the Torah what happened, but the Midrash fills it in. What happens is, Nimrod tells Abraham Avinu, Terah, Abraham's father, tells Nimrod the king, my son is anti-idol. And we're in an idol society. And so Nimrod says to Abraham, either worship the idol or get thrown in the fire. Atheist. Maybe. I hope atheist. I don't know. Worse than atheist. Yeah. There were three brothers, yeah? Abraham, Nahor, and Haran were the three brothers. Haran was the father of Sarai. And Nahor, he decided, I'm not going in there. I'm not going in the fire. One brother is on the not sacrificing for God side. Haran is on the fence, says the Midrash. Haran says, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm going to wait to see what my brother Abraham does. If Abraham goes in the fire and dies, I ain't going in the fire. If Abraham goes in the fire and lives, I'll go in the fire. So Haran is on the fence. Abraham is not on the fence. He jumps throw me right into the fire. I'm not worshiping an idol. I'll die for God. Once Abraham gets thrown in the fire and he lives, then Haran says to himself, not bad. So I'll jump on the bandwagon. I'll also go in the fire and I'll live. But he wasn't 100%. You can't play games like that unless you're 100%. And he was on the fence. So when he got thrown in the fire, Haran died in the fire. That's why it says, Vayamotera al-peneh Haran. He died on the face of Haran because Haran was killed. Terah kind of killed his own son. So it says the Arizal, what was going on in Ur-Kasdim? It was an opportunity for Adam Harishon to make tikkun for his original sin. Adam Harishon came back. And who did he come back as, says the Arizal? As both Haran and Nahor, Abraham's brothers. And this time, they were supposed to not even go close to an idol and be willing to die for God instead of worshiping the idol. If they would have done that, they would have completed the tikkun of Adam Harishon. That's what Arizal writes. What happened? Nahor didn't go in. He refused. Haran was on the fence. He went in, but not fully. And so tikkun was not finished. And so here's the point. Hashem says, I'm going to give Adam Harishon a third chance to see, will he die instead of worshiping an idol? Says the Arizal, Haran and Nahor both came back. Abraham did his part, so he's good. But the other two brothers had to come back again. Nahor, Abraham, he doesn't say Abraham was Adam Rishon. He doesn't say that. I'm thinking maybe he was, but I'm not the Arizal. He doesn't say he was. So you got it. There were three brothers. Nahor didn't even try to stand up against the idols. Haran was like on the fence. They both had to come back. So Hashem waited. At the time of the golden calf of the Egel Zahav, there were people there. One of them was Haran. One of them was Nahor. Who was Nahor? Look at the words. No, Bezalel was a little boy. Who was the word? The word Nahor. Nun, Het, Vav, Resh. Hur. Nun and Hur. Nahor became Hur. Hur was Miriam's son. Moshe's sister Miriam, her son Hur. Hur protested the Avodah Zarah of the golden calf, and they killed him. So Nahor, the first time, he didn't protest by Ur Kasdim, but the second time, he did protest, and he died al Kiddush Hashem. The other brother, Haran, look at the words. Haran, the letters, became Aharon. It's spelled the same way as Haran, just with the Aleph in the beginning. Haran becomes Aharon. Now Aharon is sitting to himself. When Moshe went up to Shamayim, and he says, if you have any problem, we have two amazing people here. The two leaders, the two Gidulim, not Yoshua. He didn't say Yoshua. He said Aharon and Hur. These are the two guys, my brother and my nephew. Any problem you have, talk to them. Aharon's looking, he says, oh, they just killed Hur. Why didn't Aharon also do what Hur did and sacrifice himself and protest the Egel and die for Hashem? Why didn't he do that?
Because he wanted to be on his neck.
He loved the people. It was Ohev Shalom. He wanted to take the responsibility. Aharon, if you look at his part that he played in the Egel, it's almost hard to say, but it's almost like he's on the fence, just like Haran was. It says he did it, but then he's Aaron Kohen. Obviously, he didn't do it. Was he responsible? Was he not? All the commentators are grappling. What was Haran's involvement with the Egel? It seems he was on the fence, just like Haran was originally on the fence. Should I do it? Should I die? Should I protest? Huh?
Yeah, I read something that if he would get killed,
Yeah.
then obviously they were
Mhm.
whatever they did.
Very good.
There was no
There's a tradition. If you kill the Melech and the Nasi, if you kill the Kohen and the leader at the same day, you're done. They already killed the leader. They can't kill the Kohen also. So he said he'll take the brunt of the sin instead of being killed. Says the Arizal, Aharon says, and he says, okay, I feel me and my nephew Hur, we share a soul of Adam Harishon. We are here to fight idol worship. Originally, Nahor, who was my nephew Hur, he didn't die. He didn't protest. And now he died. He completed his tikkun. Haran was on the fence, but he still got thrown in the fire and died. Haran calculated the tikkun is finished. As Arizal says. It's finished. Hud took care of it. Hud is already the other slice of Adam Rishon, and the tikkun is over. And therefore he said, I don't have to die. It's done. My old Haran died. And now Nahor died in the form of Hud. It's enough. And Arizal says because of this, the tikkun was still never finished. Now, we're still working on this tikkun to fight Avodah Zarah. It has different forms these days because Avodah Zarah is removed. And so Rabbi Friend famously, I love the way he says it. He says, today's idolatry is idolatry. We worship the self. That's today's idolatry. It's idolatry. It's money. It's greed. It's personal. So it's a different form of idolatry that we have to fight today. It's not finished the tikkun. Okay, so we got it. We're almost there. So Adam Rishon comes back as Abraham's brothers, Hur and Nahor, Nahor didn't die and Haran died but halfway. They came back as Aharon and Hur. Now, Hur was the son of Miriam. Who was Hur's father? Hur's father. No. Who was Hur's father? In other words, who was Miriam's husband? Who did Miriam marry? Who did Miriam? It's a good shidduch, no? Miriam. Who did she marry? Caleb ben Yefuneh. Caleb ben Yefuneh had 2 wives. Makes for a very interesting Thanksgiving dinner. Caleb ben Yefuneh had 2 wives. One was Moshe's sister, Miriam. The other was Moshe's mother, Batya. Batya. Caleb ben Yefuneh was related to Moshe Rabbeinu in 2 ways. I told you, it's a Thanksgiving dinner, right? That's a very interesting Thanksgiving dinner. So Moshe Rabbeinu was raised by Batya, the daughter of Paro. Caleb married her. And then says the Gemara, no one wanted to marry Miriam. No one. Why? She was sick. And because she was sick, her face became very ugly. That's what it says in the Gemara. Efrat, I think it calls her in the Chronicles. Caleb married her because she was an Esht Hayil inside. He didn't have the beauty. And then she got better and she was beautiful again. So he got the inside and the outside. So Caleb married both Miriam and Batya. Now, Caleb is from Yehuda. Caleb and Miriam have a son named Hur. Hur was the leader of the generation with Aaron. He was the nephew of Moshe. He died al Kiddush Hashem. Hur's grandson was Bezalel. Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur. Ben Miriam, ben Caleb and Miriam. Just the Torah doesn't go that last step. And so if we think about it, we have one piece of the puzzle. We said the Mishkan was to atone for the sin of the golden calf. What's Bezalel got to do with this? Bezalel is the grandson of the guy they killed who was protesting the golden calf. And so we asked a few questions, and we're going to answer most of them. Bezalel, what do you got to do with the Mishkan? My grandfather, you killed him against idol worship. My family is the anti-idol worship family. Who better than me to build a Mishkan, which is atoning for the idol worship? What about the other question? We learned from here that you don't elect a new rabbi or a leader unless the people agree. Why do we have to use Bezalel as the example for this lesson? Because if there's any person that made the people uncomfortable, it would be Bezalel. You're the grandson of the guy that we killed. We should make you the rabbi on top of us now? It's very uncomfortable. When the people went and told Moshe Rabbeinu, if Hashem chooses him and you choose him, we choose him, that was a very big statement. We killed his grandpa in our sin. And now we're going to take the grandkid to fix our sin. We accept. Yeah. Yeah, but even the Bnei Yisrael, even if they didn't actively kill Hud, they were standing by, they didn't stop it. You're an accomplice. It's like you did it. They'll still have some guilt. So they agreed to take the grandkid of the guy they slaughtered and murdered upon them to lead their way out of the hole that they got into. It's not easy to do that. They were against the... Yeah, but still, they're blamed for the egel. We're still paying the price for the egel. So I think sometimes, yes, the Erev Rab, in my opinion, sometimes we get too much on the Erev Rab wagon. Everything is the Erev Rab. Everything's the Erev, so we have no blame for anything. Yeah. You can't blame everything on the Erev Rav. People are still doing that these days. Ask the Erev Rav. Hey, come on. Everything can't be the Erev Rav. We have to have some guilt. So we understand now why Bezalel is actually the perfect candidate to be in charge of the Mishkan. And we understand why Hashem had to tell the people, do you agree with this guy? Because it hurts. The last questions we didn't answer was, where did he get this wisdom from? And why did Hashem pour wisdom into him at such a young age? And so for that, we just have to go up the tree back to Miriam. Miriam, Emol lahachma ahoti at, says the pasuk. Tell my sister, you are wisdom. Miriam was the original wise child. When Amram, Moshe's dad, separated from Yocheved, his mother, and said, I'm not having any more children. I think I said one time, even though Yocheved wanted more children, and that's why she named, according to what I've read, most of what I've read, Miriam was actually older than Aharon. Everyone thinks Aharon was the oldest. Most sources that I've read say Miriam was the oldest in the family. And then came Aharon. Yocheved named him Aharon, which means I should be pregnant again. Aharon, Batahad. I want another baby. Amram separated from her. There's a little secret in that name, Aharon. Amram separated from her, and Yocheved was not married, and there were no babies coming. And as we know, the Gemara Sotah says, Miriam comes to her dad and says, you're worse than Paro. She's a kid. You're worse than Paro. He's killing the boys, you're killing the girls and the boys. How do you know what's going to happen next? You have to have another child. And the Gemara says, he patted her on her head and he said, you're so wise. She was the original wise child. And so she's the great-grandmother of Bezalel. It's in the lineage. But more than that, Miriam was one of the two midwives, Shifra and Pu'ah. Paro went to the midwives and said, kill the children. They feared Hashem and they didn't do what the king says. But and they let the kids live. These midwives we know are Yocheved and Miriam. And it says, Hashem was good to them. Vaya'as lahem batim. And he made for them houses. That was their prize for being good women. Houses. What does this mean, houses? So Rashi. So the Rashi there, Rashi says, you know what the houses means? Bateh Kehuna and Bateh Malchut. The houses of Kehuna, in other words, Kohanim and Malchut and kings. This is the famous, everyone, this is Rashi. The question is, the Midrash asks this, Shemot Rabbah asks the question, it says, 1 second, we have two midwives, Yocheved, the mother, and Miriam, the daughter. Yocheved, did she get the kings from Yocheved? Yes. Yeah, Yocheved got kings. Yeah. Miriam married, her daughter Miriam married Kalev, and Kalev comes from David. Miriam is from her. So she gets kings. Yocheved, the mother, got the kings. Did Yocheved get priests, Kohanim? Absolutely. Her son Aharon became Kohen. So Yocheved got the houses. Vayas lahin batim. He made for both of them houses. So Yocheved got both houses. Did Miriam get both houses? Miriam married Kalev, who David HaMelech came from Miriam, because Miriam was Shevet Yehudah now, through marriage. Where's the Kohanim? Through Miriam. Where's the priests? Says the Midrash, how could you say the Batim is the Kohanim and the Malchut for both of the women? I understand for Yocheved, it's Batim. What about Miriam? What's her present? It's not fair. The mother got two, the daughter got one. Midrash Rabbah answers, Hashem gave Batim to Yocheved, not to Miriam. Miriam's reward was Chochmah. Chochmah. She's the family of wise people. It's in the genes of Miriam. It's in Midrash Rabbah. Midrash Rabbah, Shemot Rabbah. And so therefore, where does Bezalel, a 13-year-old kid, become wise? Chochmah. Because his great-grandmother was an amazing woman, and Hashem gave her a present. She was already wise. Now, it says, again, about Bezalel, all the questions are going to be answered. It says that by Bezalel, we learn from here that Hashem only pours wisdom into someone that already has wisdom. Miriam was already a wise child. She grew up and she continued in her ways, and Hashem poured more wisdom on top of her. And says the Midrash, where does the wisdom come out? Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur lemate Yehuda. Bezalel is the prize. What was Miriam's prize? So now you go back to Shemot next year, 5785. You ask the kids, Vayas lahem batim, the reward for Shifra and Pua. What were the rewards? And the answer should be, Yocheved got Kohanim and kings. Miriam got Bezalel. That's the answer. Bezalel was the reward for what she did. And so using the genealogy, by looking back at the family tree, every question we asked is answered. Yocheved got both, and she got kings and Bezalel. She also got two. Each of them got two. It says in the parasha a few times, the wise women. The men, anyone who says that, the Rabbi Avigdor Miller writes in his book all the time, anyone who says that the Bible is male chauvinist has never read the Bible. It says the women participated. The wise women participated. They were experts. They sewed. It says the women sewed the goat hairs. Rashi over there says, what was so special about sewing goat hairs? They sewed the goat hairs while they were still on the goat, before they were sheared off. That's when the women, when they sewed the idiot, it was still attached to the goat. And when they sheared it off, it came off as a yeti, ready to go on the Mishkan. Unbelievable. Who could do such a thing? That's like Rav Chaim Kanievsky, alav shalom, he writes in his Sefer, there's only one woman who could do this, Miriam. Who is the woman that sewed the goat hairs? Has to be the wisest woman we have. So he asks, who's the wisest woman we have? Miriam is wisdom. Miriam is the source of, she's a fountain of wisdom. Miriam is the woman, says Rav Chaim Kanievsky, who sewed the goats onto the goats, the hair while they were on the goats. And today's Rosh Chodesh Adar, which means Purim is coming. And so therefore, we'll read Megillah, Masechet Megillah. It says in Masechet Megillah, B'schar sini'ut shayta ba berachel, in reward for the sini'ut, for the modesty that Rachel had, zacheta v'yatza mimena Shaul. She got Shaul as a result. Shaul was the first king. U'b'schar sini'ut shaya bo b'Shaul, because Shaul was modest, zacha v'yatza mimenu Esther. He was lucky enough to get Queen Esther coming from him. What sini'ut are we talking about? Umay sini'ut hayta ba berachel. Now Rachel, we should all know the sini'ut of Rachel. What was the modesty of Rachel? Modesty not meaning dress. I'm not talking the way she dressed. Modesty means words we're talking about. She didn't speak. What are we talking about? Dichtiv. Vayaged Yaakov Rachel ki yachi Abiyahu. V'chi yachi Abiyahu. V'alo ben achi Abiyahu. Yaakov told Rachel, I am your father's brother, Lavan. I'm his brother. What are you talking about? You're not his brother. Rivka, your mother is his brother. When I answers, Amar la min sibatli. It's a well-known Gemara, this Gemara. He tells Rachel, I want to marry you. Amar le, Rachel says to Yaakov, In, I agree. Mihu, however, Abara ma'ahu. My father is a trickster. Velo yachot le. You're not going to be able to beat him. You'll never get me. He's going to trick you. He's going to give me my sister Leah. Amar le, Amar la, he says to her, Ahiv anab berama'ut. When Yaakov tells Rachel, I am your brother, I am your father's brother, doesn't mean literally. I am his brother, just like he's a trickster, I could be a trickster. I know how to do what he does. That's what he means. Amar le, Umi shari de sadiki, the seguye benimuyuta. Is a sadiq allowed to be a trickster? Amar la'in, he says, yes. You got to deal fire with fire. If someone's a trickster, you got to be a trickster with him. Amar la, he says to her, what's he going to do to me? What's your father's trick? Amar le, she says to him, itli itita de kashisha minai. I have an older sister, Leah. She's older than me. V'la minasivli li mikama, and she's not married already. Masal la simanim. So he gave her simanim. This is the famous simanim. So Yaakov gives Rachel words that she's supposed to say, and when she says these words, I'm going to know it's you. And if the bride doesn't say these words, I'm going to know it's not you. Kimata Lilia, when the night came, Amra, she said, Hashta michsefa ahatai. My sister is going to be embarrassed when he calls her and she doesn't know the secret code. Masaltinu nihala. I'm just going to tell her the code. That's why it says in the parasha, in the morning, behold, she is Leah. And the night time she wasn't Leah. He didn't know it was Leah until the morning. So she kept the secret. So Rachel was very capable of keeping her mouth quiet. She kept a secret. Therefore, as a reward for this, she got Shaul. Shaul is from the tribe of Binyamin, which is the son of Rachel. So Rachel became the mother of the first king. Not all the kings, because then Yehuda took it, which is Leah's kids. But Rachel got the first king. Because of this, we said Shaul was modest and quiet, and therefore he got Esther. What was Shaul modest? When Shemuel, the prophet Samuel, came to Shaul and said, I am going to make you the king, but it's not time yet to say anything. He didn't say anything. His uncle, says in the Shemuel, the Shaul's uncle said, oh, you met Shaul? Shemuel, the prophet? What did he tell you? He didn't tell him that I'm king. He kept it quiet. So Shaul, also it says when Shaul was, they were looking for him to make him king, he was hiding with the luggage, it says in the story in the prophets. He was hiding with the luggage, with all the bags. He didn't want to be seen. Shaul was also modest. And so he got that from who? From Rachel, from his grandmother. And he passed that gene on to who? Onto Esther. Amar Shemuel, Zacha v'yatza'a mimenu Esther. Because of this, he got Esther. Why? Because Shaul, it says, Debad hamilucha lo higid lo. He didn't tell him, I'm going to be the king. He kept that a secret. And Esther, lo higida Esther. She didn't tell where she came from. Why? Because Mordechai said, don't tell her. If you tell him where you came from, we're done. You have to keep it a secret. Esther said, I can do that. Why? I come from a family of keeping secrets. I can be quiet. And says the Gemara, "Ve'amar Rabbi Elazar, k'she'akadosh baruch hu posek gedola le'adam." When Hashem decides to give greatness to a person, posek lebanav ve'levnei banav ad sof kol hadoron. He gives greatness to him, his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, forever. It really becomes mamash a gene. And so we see from here, just like Esther, if not for Esther, we wouldn't be here today. The whole salvation of the Jews was because of one woman. Because one woman can keep her mouth quiet and not say where she's coming from. Esther was quiet. That's why her name was Esther, right? Esther means to be hidden. And because of that, we're all here. And she got that as a reward for what? For Shaul being quiet. And Shaul got that as a reward for Rachel being quiet. And so we see Hashem pays back for generations to come. So just like Miriam was wise. Okay, Bezalel, your great-grandkid is going to build the Mishkan, which is going to atone for the whole sin of the Egel. Even though your son is going to be killed by the Egel. Because Miriam's son Hud was the one who died. Hashem has the biggest chessboard that we've ever seen. He's 10 moves ahead of us. And so therefore, as we come into Purim is all about Benahapochu. The story flipped over. Benahapochu is only for us. We're the only ones who think stories flip over. But we have to know, from Hashem's perspective, there's no Benahapochu. The whole script is written perfectly from the beginning. The script is not being flipped from Hashem's perspective, like I said a million times, also from Rabbi Fran. If you look at a needlepoint, my mom is big into needlepoint. You look at a needlepoint, from the front, it's beautiful. Look from the back, it's a mess. So if you only see the back of the needlepoint, you like what I did? It's the whole mess. There's strings everywhere. Yeah, but wait till I flip it around. But the second you flip it around, oh, wow, what a beautiful picture. That's the same thing in everything in our life. Yeah, the story looks really bleak until Vinahapachu. He flips it around. Oh, wow, what a great story. Everything's good. Oh, the whole time it was really a work of art. That's only for us who look at it from the bottom. But Hashem's looking at it from the right way. And so this is all about Vinahapachu. So a couple of takeaways. Number one, we're getting into Adad. Mishnechas Adad Marbim B'Simcha. We feel the Geula. This is really the month of being Zachor. It's all about Geula, getting closer to Nisan. It's redemption. It's that everything's going to turn out good. Even though we don't see it right now, there's payback coming down the road. Number one. Number two, we have to understand two things. Number one, if we're good people, Hashem will reward us, but it may not be now. It may be after we're dead. It may be our great grandkid. But someone might save the Jewish world because of you. Hashem knows when. Atsof kol adorot. Miriam, she was an amazing woman. Her son Hud died. And she was alive still. She buried her kid. And so Miriam can't go to Hashem and say, Hashem, you killed my son Hud? What am I doing all this for? Nobody even talks about this. We talk about Aharon losing his kids. Wow, by Yidom Aharon, he was quiet. What about Miriam burying Hud? No one says a word about this. We have to give her credit. Bezalel, she saw the end story. Bezalel, her great-grandson, was a giant at the age of 13 years old. And so if we do something, don't worry, Hashem has a ledger. But great-grandson of Miriam. Great. Yeah? Hud, Bezalel ben Uri, ben Hud, ben Caleb. And then it works the other way as well. If you or I have something good in our life, we have a talent, we're smart, we're successful, we're good at something, it could be because of our jiddo. It could be because of our saba or sapta. It could be from our grandparents. We don't know where it comes from, so we don't take credit for it. It just becomes part of our genealogy. Ad sof kol hadorot. It should be the will of Hashem. Hopefully this opened up a little bit of the story so we can understand the whole Bezalel thing, where he comes from, the whole family tree. It's amazing when you think about it. And Aharon is Aleph Haran. Aharon was Haran. He added the Aleph to Haran. Adding the Aleph Olam was much better than Haran. And Hud is Nahor. The same bodies being switched over and over. It should be a great month. Next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll do Purim. We'll do something about Purim. And then after that, it is Purim. So one more class before Purim, and then a break for Purim. And it should be a beautiful month of Adad. Marbim Simcha. Have a nice week, everybody. Azak bemas.